Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown ready to go for 2 hours. Sidelines, college football talk. We've got a great lineup today. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports over in Athens, GA, the Classic City, will join us. Hello, Jeff Boone, Paul Wickenheiser out in Reno, Nevada. You're listening this morning. Thank you. I always love to hear the dog report. We'll be joined in the second segment up in Nashville, Johnny Ballpark Franks. The big picture of college football, FSU take. Top of the second hour, we will be joined, by Johnny Radio over in Memphis, Sports 56 WHBQ, one of the most positive people in radio, also an instructor and teacher of that great craft. And an interview yesterday with Vern Lundquist. Right on, man. And my good friend Dave Cody out in Bellingham, Washington, was listening and marveling at, and I think we all are, at what Vern Lundquist said about when the story is unfolding right before your eyes, just shut up. Let the viewers see it. You don't have to say much. All right. And in the fourth segment, we'll be joined by, I think, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report. Mark Ham's going to chime in. And Ben Troupe from over at Coastal ESPN in Savannah, Georgia. Gator All-American tight end for Steve Spurrier and the Zooker, Ron Zook, and played 5 years in the NFL, will weigh in with his thoughts on college football. Give us a follow on Twitter at sidelines_live. And hey, we're broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. They had a Ford Cobra, Shelby Cobra in here, lasted 2 days on the showroom floor. That thing was so powerful. You just looked at it and you were going fast. But anyway, one other thing too, I want to say a shout out to everybody that is out there listening, www.sidelines.live or 680thefan.com, the podcast park in Atlanta, and Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, all over Central Alabama, part of the Radio Alabama group. Hey, we got to talk some college football with Jordan Hill. And Jordan, I'm using this term kind of jokingly. Was there a mass run, a panic among the Georgia fans that someone actually could stay on the field with Georgia? I think there's only so many games you can play against teams that you are way better than and keep a full focus. But what were your takeaways from 39-22 victory over Kent State this past weekend over Between the Hedges, Sanford Stadium, Vince Dooley Field?
Yeah, it was kind of surprising. I mean, that's a game Georgia walks into, and they're a 45-point favorite. And to me, it boiled down to turnovers. Had a muff punt, had an interception thrown, had a fumble. It was a situation where Georgia started that game looking really good. Got a 3 and out, went right down the field, 2 plays. Brock Bowers takes it to the house, 75 yards, and then get another 3 and out. And then you turn the ball over on a punt. And I think that was the story of the game. I think it was a situation where Georgia came in and, those mistakes lingered because that, we know the talent differential between a Kent State and a Georgia, but that is a good group of 5 team. I mean, they may wind up winning the MAC. And I think it was a wake-up call for some of these guys, just that if you mess around, particularly when you give possessions away, I mean, if you're in a tight game, you lose the turnover battle by 2 in that game, you can really put yourself in harm's way. And I think it was a situation where, they moved the ball well. I think they had something like 530 yards of offense. Defense did a good job, really, other than like 2 screens that Kent State broke open. One went for a touchdown. The other one was about 27 yards. So I think it was a situation where, as far as the coaching staff goes and the players as well, you can build off of it in a good way because you won. You stay undefeated. But I think they saw a lot of little things. That was what Stetson Bennett said after the game, little things we could correct. I think on the whole, these guys know that wasn't their best performance, but that there's ways to clean that up before they get back in SEC play.
Well, they got to go to Missouri this weekend, and I don't know what you can really read in. Missouri played Auburn tough. What does that mean this season, the way Auburn's playing? But it is a road game in the SEC. And the thing that you look at with Georgia, and I asked you about this, and I talked with everybody that we talked to Georgia addressing, this team and wide receivers and tight ends and running backs. And I kept saying the tight ends are so good. They're going to be the receivers. Well, Brock Bowers now is doing things other that tight ends just don't do. And if you're looking, and I was listening to Roman numerals on SEC Network this morning, Matt Stinchcomb, and former Georgia All-American back in 97, 98, and Roman Harper, of course, at Alabama, proud son of Prattville, Alabama. But they were talking about, Heisman numbers, that Brock Bowers is actually pulling away from Stetson Bennett. I mean, that's a great problem to have. And I know they were kidding around, but Brock Bowers is a talent that I have not seen at the tight end position. And I'm sure he's not as tall as Gronkowski, but man, he's doing things that will keep defensive coordinators of opposing teams up all night, Jordan.
Yeah, and I think it kind of boils down to, especially this year, Georgia has not hesitated to be creative with how they get him the ball. I mentioned that second play.
Yeah.
They hand the ball off to him, and he runs to his right and runs down the sideline and outraces everybody. And, there was a lot of talk to start the year about the potential of Stetson being a Heisman candidate. Has that great game to open the season against Oregon. Has played pretty well besides that. But to me, if you were asking me legitimately, on this Georgia team, who could really be in the conversation for the Heisman, I think that Brock Bowers would have the stronger argument, just because I think what he's doing is just so unique. And, it's going to be hard for that to legitimately happen, for him to still be in that conversation into November and December. But, I think it's possible. The way that he works in this offense, I think it's very feasible, especially when you look at A.D. Mitchell being banged up right now, that he could continue to be Georgia's top receiving target. They may still hand him the ball some. He was averaging something, like 30 yards a carry. He only took 2 carries, but that still looked pretty nice.
Yes.
The way he's able to play, everybody understands that he is something unique to the tight end position. And the thing that I think would really help, if he is going to be a name we're talking about into November, into December, is how he plays against the likes of Kentucky, against Florida, against Tennessee. These games that, I still think Georgia has the talent advantage, but I think they're going to be the toughest games on Georgia's schedule. How does he play in those moments? Does he deliver what we all know is a Heisman moment? Everybody likes to gravitate to a play or coming up big in a big game. Is Brock Bowers in a position where that's possible? And if so, does that really make him somebody that could be in New York when we're talking about December?
Yeah, and looking around at the other tight ends, Eric Gilbert, he's trying to get on the field. Darnell Washington, that nobody has that kind of talent at the tight end position. And I don't know if these kids all just grew up watching Rob Gronkowski play, but it's not normally a position that is just, hemorrhaging with elite talent. And you've got 3 of the best I've ever seen, on one team in recent memory at the tight end position. And as the receivers are coming along, you call them the no-name group. It's just until they get a lot of passes thrown at them. But I think the biggest knock that I see when people talk about Georgia is they say, well, Stetson Bennett's not a pro quarterback. Again, it doesn't matter. What matters is what this guy's doing to help his team be competitive every time they play a game. And Stetson's better than he was last year. Are you surprised at that? Or I know there were probably people that thought he had peaked out last year and that's as good as it's ever going to be. And I know people will say, well, who's he really played to this point? It doesn't matter. How smart do you really have to be to know, in my opinion, Stetson Bennett's way better than he was last year?
I think he is, and again, that's just attributed to the fact he was the QB1 throughout the offseason, had all those reps, had Todd Monken designing this year's offense with him in mind. And I think it's pretty clear he's playing better. He threw an interception on Saturday against Kent State. That was his first pick since the SEC championship game. He played really well down the stretch in the playoff, and he kind of had a miscommunication with Marcus Rosemi-Jack Saint on Saturday and kind of threw the ball a little more inside than Rosemi ran. And that led to kind of an easy interception. But, I think it's just a testament to the work he's put in. I think he understood going into this year that this is it as far as his time at Georgia. I think he wanted to make the most of it. And, we heard all through the offseason about how he commanded that quarterback position, the way he had shown growth, the way, the biggest thing that Kirby told us during the preseason was how Stetson was cutting down what Kirby described as those boneheaded plays. I feel like you had to make something happen. I think Stetson has gotten to the point with his maturity where he understands sometimes you got to live to fight another down, even if that means having to punt and go back out there the next drive. I think he's got a better understanding of knowing when he's got to make a play and when sometimes you just got to eat it, throw the ball away, even take a sack if you got to.
Yeah, is the Carlton the doorman, Mr. Anonymous position, the field goal kicker now at Georgia, because Podolsky, and he's one of many great kickers Georgia's had down through the years. But with Todd Monken's offense, that it's so prolific. It's like Steve Spurrier. I mean, somebody go back and name me a field goal kicker during the 12 years Steve Spurrier was at Florida. It's that good if you're a Georgia fan right now, I think.
Yeah, and it was funny. We got to talk to Jack Podolsky last night, and somebody asked him if people take field goals for granted, and that question was coming off of what happened with Missouri. We all thought that was a gimme field goal and he misses, and I thought Jack had good perspective and was like, everybody, coaches are kind of disappointed when they got to send the kicker out there because they wanted a touchdown and, having to settle for 3 points. But, I think it's something that those guys take pride in doing what they're asked, whether that's, like in that Oregon game, going out there and kicking 7 extra points, or if it's like on Saturday, or even going back to the Stanford game in week 2. There was a few drives early on that Georgia had to settle for field goals. And, I think Podolsky has done a very good job so far this year. Last year, it seemed like he kind of had a slow start, and his accuracy wasn't quite what I think Georgia wanted in his junior year. But so far, he's looked really, really good. And, you need a guy you can count on, because as much as we talk about Georgia being favorites throughout the season, it sets up for 12-0. They could find themselves in some tight games. And if you go into a game and you're not sure about that kicker, I mean, I've seen, through the years, if you get into a game and especially early, you miss a field goal, you miss maybe 2 field goals, that game's a little tight. It gets kind of shaky going into that fourth quarter.
If you knew the 40-yard dash time of the SEC's all-time leading scorer, I think you and Jimmy would both be in shock. Daniel Carlson, field goal kicker for Auburn, is the SEC's all-time leading scorer. That's how important field goals and special teams, punts, deep snappers are. Jimmy, jump in here with Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, talking Georgia. It's as good as it's been in a long time up in Athens. All right. Well, Jordan.
We left him speechless, Rob.
Yeah, left him speechless. I know sometimes that mute thing sticks to his ear if he's in transit. I know he's driving from Chicago to Knoxville today, but Jordan, again, I look at what I see in this Georgia team, offense and defense. And also, there was something I saw on Twitter last night. I'm telling you, folks, follow Jordan Hill on Twitter and plug your address in here real quick while I'm saying this, because you put out, Kirby's coming up to the podium. Special teams up there to the podiums. We've got it on the screen right underneath there. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
But you look at the special teams guys, and I made a comment last night. When your special teams guys are that dialed in, that serious and focused on their job, you can beat everybody you play. I mean, you've got a total buy-in up in Athens. Not saying you haven't had that before. And that's what everybody's been saying. We hear about, and there's this group of people out there in the media, when Texas A&M gets their act together. Well, Olin Buchanan's on our show a lot, texags.com. And I love that guy. And I'm sure he's as frustrated as anybody, but when are they going to do that? When have they done that in recent history? And I look at Georgia, and people talk about Florida, but Georgia's the 4th most talent-rich state in America. They've got their act together. They've got a generational type talent as a head coach. I mean, but if you're a Georgia fan, what you got to love is Kirby always wants more, and the team feeds off that. They're like great white sharks. I mean, they eat a couple of seal pups. I want more.
Yeah, and talking about the special teams, I was really struck by. We got to talk to MJ Sherman. This was a guy who was a 5-star out of Maryland when he signed with Georgia in 2020, and he's really not played a ton at outside linebacker so far. I mean, they've got more experienced guys like Nolan Smith and Robert Bill, but he's played a bunch on special teams. In fact, he had 2 tackles on kickoff Saturday against Kent State, and I asked him basically about taking pride in that. And his quote, and I got it pulled up on my phone: "Just as serious as you take your 9 to 5 job is as serious as I take my special teams job." And that's the attitude. Kirby was
I love
asked about that. Kirby was asked about that before MJ come out there. And you could tell Kirby was kind of like, well, yeah. I mean, he was like, that's the approach we take, and this isn't new to an MJ Sherman or the other guys playing on special teams right now. He said, that's part of the game. We take that seriously. And I'm thinking back, in his first year, they had guys like Sony Michel on special teams. I mean, he was a main part of that offense, but they want those guys playing. They want to put their best playmakers out there on the field to go, have potentially game-changing plays on special teams. And those guys take it super seriously, and they've done a really good job with it.
Well, and I tell you what, Urban Meyer, that's what he does with his teams. He puts the best guys out there, special teams, offense, defense, whatever. And historically, that's the best way to get noticed when you're a freshman, is to be on the special teams and be on the return team and make big plays. That's how you get noticed, especially in a roster that's as deep and talented as Georgia's. And I love seeing and hearing those sound bites and those excerpts from those players that are that focused. All right, we come back, we're going to talk about some recruiting with you. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers Georgia right after this on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Jordan, I want to ask you this too before we talk some recruiting. Kentucky, Tennessee, playing really good football. Both undefeated to this point. Florida at 2-2, but they never quit in that road game, hostile environment up in Knoxville. Again, we talk about this every week. SEC East, SEC West. I think the SEC East is getting an A right now for improvement.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the East is in such a good spot, and there's a lot of movement. I think, again, I think I said this on a hit here a few weeks ago. I still think Georgia's in a tier by itself, but you really got to like where Kentucky and Tennessee sit right now. And Florida's feisty. I mean, I would not be surprised if that game in Jacksonville is going to be close, just because I really like the direction Billy Napier has taken in his first year. I think they got talent. I think the fact that they made it that close against Tennessee, I'm from North Georgia. I got a lot of family that's Tennessee fans. I was getting a lot of texts when that Florida guy reached out there and caught that onside kick, because there was some nervous folks that were thinking they were going to pull that comeback. But, I think the East has done a good job. And you look back to the SEC and specifically the West in those early 2000s, part of what made them so much stronger is the hires they made. I mean, bringing in guys like Nick Saban and continuing to cycle in some of the top coaches. I think that you're starting to see that in the East. I mean, I think that Josh Heupel, did not get a lot of attention when he was hired at Tennessee. That was such a mess post Jeremy Pruitt. I mean, that has turned out to be an outstanding hire, and especially him landing Hendon Hooker from Virginia Tech. I mean, what a pickup for Tennessee. But I think Billy Napier's a really good coach. I thought he did a good job while he was at UL Lafayette, biding his time, waiting on the right job. I think he's got it in Florida, and then Kentucky too. I mean, when Mark Stoops got there, they were very inconsistent under Joker Phillips. They were not a contender. They've done a very good job, and I think that the East race, specifically for second place, is going to be really exciting this year.
Yeah, and when you look at Georgia, again, what they're doing right now, they will have tough games. I mean, again, they've got Tennessee coming down there. They've got to go play at Kentucky November 19th, world's largest outdoor cocktail party coming up. And Florida will be ready to go. And if anything, Anthony Richardson really showed that was his first true road game in the SEC. And what a place to be baptized into that. Neyland Stadium, 100,000 plus. That was an incredible environment. And he did some things. He has so much talent. It's just with him, the more he plays, the better he's going to get. All right, let's look at recruiting for Georgia in state. Again, say it may not be a great year, but they're going to be probably 250 kids that go Division I. I look around at Georgia Southern, Georgia State. I don't know what they're doing down in Milledgeville, if they're going to get a program up one day, but then, you got Georgia Tech. They cleaned house. They've got to go get new people. But in state right now, who are the top targets for Georgia?
Well, I think it's a situation where they've done a good job of picking through what's been kind of a weak 2023 class, and they've done a good job. Really, right now, the focus has been on Florida. Last night, they got Tyler Williams, a 4-star. I think he's like 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a guy that Georgia really needed at wide receiver. He was a guy Brian McClendon has been on for a while. He's a guy that it looked like it was going to be either Miami or Georgia, and a lot of Georgia fans were nervous because he went to Miami this past weekend. Now, maybe the fact Middle Tennessee won that game probably didn't hurt Georgia's chances, but he had actually been a silent commit, and I think that was a big get as far as he is now the third receiver that Georgia has committed. Yeah, and the focus again, I mean, they've picked some guys from Georgia like Gabe Harris. There's a few other guys, Bo Hewley, an offensive tackle, but they've done a very good job. And really the focus to me right now is in Florida. Getting Tyler Williams, they're going after Samuel Mpemba, who is an outside linebacker. If he's not a 5-star, he's a high 4-star. And also a defensive lineman from Jacksonville, Jordan Hall. He is another big target on this team. Right now, Georgia's sitting pretty. They are second in the nation in recruiting, got 20 commits. And, again, it's kind of been a weak class as far as in-state in Georgia, but they have done a good job of picking up some of those games and finding the talent outside of there, particularly right now, like I said, the focus being in Florida to try to round out this class.
Yeah. All right. Georgia's NIL program. You look around at what Alabama has, what Florida has, Tennessee. You had a lot of collectives. What do you know about their efforts to make it work? I don't know how much they really need it, but if Clemson or Auburn or Alabama is offering it, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, they've got the Classic City Collective, and they had their athletic association board meeting last week, and they had someone from compliance just kind of explaining how that works. And going back to the summer, Kirby Smart talked about it, and the impression I get is that they've got it there, and they will talk to players, but that's not going to be part of their recruiting pitch, and that's something even compliance has really talked about. That's not what NIL, as far as Georgia wants to take it. That's not their focus. They want to make sure when guys get to Georgia that they're taken care of. And, I think that that's part of what has helped Kirby with some of these recruits. I mean, he, from all intents and purposes, everything I've ever heard, is going to be a straight shooter with these guys, and again, they've had a lot of players who are here that have NIL deals. Stetson's got a bunch. Brock Bowers has a bunch. But I think they've done a good job of approaching it, the way that it was intended. And, shame on the NCAA because there were not guardrails set up to make sure this did not become part of recruiting. Because I don't blame a team, a coach or a coaching staff for saying, well, there's no rules against this. But, I don't think that's been a huge focus. And there were concerns with some of the players Georgia has missed that, do we feel like NIL had something to do with it? It's hard to say from the outside looking in. But they've got it there, and they want to make sure once guys get to Athens, once they're playing for the red and black, that they're taken care of.
Yeah. And Stetson Bennett, I'm just curious, and maybe you can find this out. I wonder if he has a deal with Stetson, the hats, the clothing. I mean, because it's just such a natural, and he's a South Georgia country boy that loves hunting and fishing. You wonder, that makes such sense. But I read a figure that the national average players are earning off of NIL is $3,400. That's why I'm saying I think there may be a few of these big deals, but these multi-million-dollar deals, I don't see how that can be sustained. But I mean, we know boosters have deep pockets, but how deep do they want to go? They're already having to pay enough for scholarships and luxury suites and everything else. How many times can you go to the well?
And you got to think too. I mean, what's your return on investment with some of this stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, but I think what the good for NIL, and Kirby talked about this back at SEC Media Days, is situations like Dan Jackson, who is not on scholarship. He's got at least one NIL deal. I know Kirby talked about it. Another player, I don't think Kirby said who it was, has a father that's got health problems, so they're helping. He's got NIL deals to help with that. To me, that is what is the good in NIL. I think obviously people get caught up when you see these big deals, and players like Bryce Young doing commercials with Dr. Pepper, things like that. That's all fine and good, and I'm glad to see those guys get their money. But I think it's really situations where you got like walk-ons and guys, unheralded guys. Like last year, I think the Arkansas offensive line had like a barbecue restaurant deal, stuff like that. To me, is what makes NIL really worthwhile.
Yeah, it's hard to believe this is the second season of it. And again, it's all about the ROI. That's what I know about in the investment business is people are going to say, well, I'm paying for this. Am I getting what I want? But anyway, I like your take on that. The Classic City Collective. Look, Jordan Hill, let people know how they can follow you. You are one of the best people out there in sports media, 24/7 sports. Love having you on here always.
Appreciate it, Rob. Yeah, at Jordan Davis Hill on Twitter. Like Rob said, I'm always tweeting from these interviews we got with the coaches and the players. And then go to dogs247.com, see all our content. Got a really cool story this morning on MJ Sherman. His father is a senator in Liberia. So we wrote about just talking about his life. And he talked about he was wearing a necklace last night when we talked to him with the continent of Africa on it. So he talked a little bit about that. So it's really neat, but exciting time and getting ready for a big road trip this weekend.
Hey, absolutely. You're heading out to Columbia, Missouri. I guess, I don't know. Will you be able to stop and see a Cardinals game?
We talked about that. We talked about it. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it off. And also, I don't know if there's going to be bad weather Friday night, but I'd like to see old Pujols try to get a hold of one while I'm up there.
Yeah. And while you're there, across the street is the National Bowling Hall of Fame. So, that's another great thing to see.
That's first on the to-do list. Then maybe we'll get to that Cardinals game.
Yeah. But I mean, Busch Stadium, one of the great cathedrals of Major League Baseball, as is Truist Park there, the Brave Stadium. That's the great thing about the SEC. You got the bookends, Braves on the East, Cardinals on the West. Anyway, Jordan, have a safe trip. Look forward to having you on next week. And as always, appreciate your time. And folks, pay attention to what Jordan does. You'll learn a lot.
Appreciate it, Rob.
All right, you bet. Jimmy Hodge, back with us. I think we lost you. I know you're in transit from Chicago, Lake Zurich down to Knoxville. So you're back with us. Just chime in because I didn't even know what had happened. I went to you and I thought maybe, I don't know what had happened, but that was interesting. The Classic City Collective, Jimmy, and Johnny Ballpark Franks will be joining us here in just a moment, talking about what's going on. I want to ask him about, of course, Florida State. They're sitting there at 4-0, but Jimmy, when you look at the SEC East, this is going to be a fun race because Tennessee's undefeated, Kentucky, Florida. I mean, they're not going to quit. I know Kentucky beat them by 10 points, 12 points. Tennessee, Florida. I mean, God, when the Gators got the onside kick with 17 seconds left, anything was possible. But man, Billy Napier is a fiery, competitive guy. He may look like he's laid back, but he showed four coaches had to restrain him on the sidelines. And I'm looking forward to asking Ben Troupe. Steve Spurrier used to get fired up and throw visors. Billy Napier, one thing he can't do is pull his hair out. Jimmy, are you there? Okay. Well, anyway, I will say this. Looking around at the landscape in college football up to this point, the SEC East, SEC West, you can argue, which one's better. Well, in terms of teams that Kentucky's in the top 10, Tennessee's in the top 10, Georgia's number 1. So you've got 3. SEC West, you've got Alabama at number 2, and Arkansas fell out of the top 10. They're pretty good. I don't know, how good they are, but one thing we do know is that the SEC top to bottom again is super competitive. But we're going to switch gears and head down. I want to talk about your school, Johnny Ballpark Franks, up in Nashville, your alma mater, Florida State University, as Gene Deckerhoff would say, Florida State Seminoles, as Chief Osceola comes out on Renegade, and this crowd at Doak Campbell Stadium is rising to their feet as the sun slowly sets in the East Florida Panhandle, and the Florida State Seminoles are ready, and here comes Chief Osceola. Man, what an atmosphere. That is one of the coolest openings in college football, just like when Elvis would come out, the opening song. What are we going to have as an opening song when Johnny Ballpark Franks is on here? The war chant? What's it going to be?
Well, I will say this. I was one of the first 50 individuals in the stands to ever do the chant. And it was before the Braves, before the Kansas City Chiefs. The band started it. I was in the student section right in front of them. And honestly, and I grew up, when I was going to college games, I would go to Alabama and we do on kickoffs, roll tide roll. And I always thought that Florida State needed that anyway. Well, after having some liquid refreshments before we would go to these games, the band started it. And honestly, I was one of the first 50 individuals ever to do the war chant from the stands.
Well, you think about that when you've got a stadium full doing that, it's intimidating. I mean, you've got Rock Chalk, Jayhawk, they do it at Kansas basketball. I'm sure they do it in football now too. They're 4-0, but what an incredible atmosphere. Now the Noles are 4-0. And just what I saw in the 4 years Mike Norvell was at Memphis, I was like, my God, this guy can coach. And I know Marcus Woodson, who was on his staff for 2 years and came to Auburn for 2, and he's back with him at Florida State. They've got some recruiters down there, and they got coach. Marcus Woodson is one of the most the best defensive back coaches, recruiters. He's a great guy. I've spent a lot of time talking with him. They've got something happening down in Tallahassee, and as they're getting better, that's going to be a problem for other schools, because when Florida State, man, when they're on Johnny Ballpark Franks, they're as tough as anybody in the country to deal with, because it's only 2 schools in the history of college football that have ever done what they've done and what Alabama's currently doing, and that's go 14 years. And Florida State did something no one's ever done. Every year, never lower than 4th in the country. And when you shed light on that Florida State tradition, all that, tradition never graduates. That's what's happening with Florida State. But I want your take on it.
Well, I totally believe that. And everybody wants to keep asking the question, is Florida State back? Does it even matter? Let's just enjoy it. If you're a Florida State fan, you've suffered in recent years. So enjoy what they're doing. We're talking about the first sellout in the last 7 years this past Saturday against Boston College. And look at this gauntlet coming up. We're talking about the best of the best in the ACC, but how about the fact that here's a team ranked 22nd in the country in Wake Forest, a team that really should have knocked off Clemson last Saturday, losing in 2 overtimes to Clemson. And Florida State is a touchdown favorite at home against Wake Forest Saturday afternoon. Then they have to go on the road at North Carolina State, but they get a top 10 team in North Carolina State after they have to deal with Clemson And then finally the big game coming up, and everybody's looking forward to seeing exactly the measuring stick of where Florida State is right now. They take on Clemson on October 15th, a game that will be played in Tallahassee. Is it Florida State going to win all three of these? No. Do I think they beat Clemson? Absolutely, I do.
Look, Mike Norvell is a great play caller. And I think his players love playing for him. I mean, that's the thing about it. When you're a coach and you're tough and you're driven and he's wired, you can get guys to work those extra sprints, those extra hill repeats or extra reps, whatever. That's where I'm seeing the progress made. And we just live in a day and age of knee-jerk reaction. So we're going to talk about where you think they started to turn the corner. More with Johnny Ballpark Franks on Sidelines after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back with Johnny Ballpark Franks. And Johnny, was the turning point for Mike Norvell the way they ended last season and then getting that win on the road in the Superdome? And you called it. Frank Duffy was there, and he was talking about it was going to be a tough game. But was that where it happened, 24-23 in the Superdome? Because their body language is completely different than what I'd seen in the first couple of years.
You said something earlier, and I think it's a problem that, Nick Saban faced this when he took the job at Alabama. And I think the turning point is not necessarily the outcome of a football game. The turning point is when you get more guys in that locker room that are following you as the leader of that program, meaning the players are starting to follow the head coach, then you have remnants of past programs. And I think when you saw the fact that you have more guys that were there because of Mike Norvell compared to the guys that were still there thinking about themselves and under the Willie Taggart regime, I think that is when the change happened at Florida State. And I think that's where the change happens when you have other programs that are moving in the right direction. Everybody, in the last 8 or 9 years, when there was a job opening, everybody wanted to get their next Nick Saban. We want to get we want to get this version of Nick Saban. Well, how about this? Look at what Tennessee has done with Josh Heupel, finding the right marriage. Look what Florida State has done with Mike Norvell, finding the right marriage. So we've got openings now at Nebraska, Arizona State, Georgia Tech. Auburn, probably would have had one if Missouri either made a very makeable field goal or held on the ball in overtime.
Yeah.
We probably would have another opening this week and be down on the plains at Auburn. Yeah. But the bottom line is when you're trying to fill these positions, look for somebody who is the right fit. Don't look for the shiny toy out there that's been so successful and try to force the circle and the square peg, vice versa. Look for the right fit for your program moving forward. Make sure it's exciting football, not only to watch, but also exciting football for these student athletes to want to be a part of.
People don't buy clothes and they don't wear clothes that don't fit. I mean, it's so obvious when a university makes a coaching hire that's not a fit. And if you do, and it, Frank Broyles always said, you got to make the choice and you got to get rid of them. No matter what the cost is, short term, the long-term cost will be far greater. And I look at it, Florida had won 16 of the last 17 games going into last Saturday's showdown at Neyland Stadium. After that game on the Cumberland Strip in Knoxville, when the Tennessee fans were celebrating and going crazy all over Knoxville and Tennessee, Vol Nation, everywhere, do you think that entered into anybody's mind how that they were mad because they lost 16 of the last 17? All they care about is what's happening now. But when you're seeing those crowds at Neyland Stadium, my God, the orange and white checkerboard, and my wife Audrey is Evolved for Life, and cousin Mark, and all these people, that's all they care about is the right now. But that tradition, man, again, you start waking up the past and connecting it to what's going on now. That's what's happening at Florida State. I mean, that's in Doak Campbell Stadium. If you haven't been to a game down there, that is a horrible place to be a visiting team. Not that it's a bad people or anything. It's just the crowd. I think they're starting to believe again in the Seminoles.
Oh, absolutely. And that's very encouraging. And, I had a chance to visit with Johnny Rogers. It's the 50th anniversary of his win as far as the Heisman Trophy back in 1972. And a Nebraska program, in so many cases when you have coaches, now Scott Frost should have gotten it. He played at Nebraska. But in so many cases, you have head coaches who don't necessarily want to bring in around the old guys, especially if you have a job as a head coach of a program with a great tradition, although it may have been 20 years since that great tradition. A lot of times you have coaches who want to forget about that part of it because they don't want the expectations to be national championship or bust. I mean, I always joke that Bush Jones felt like, the Tennessee Vols fans should have built a statue of him outside Neyland Stadium and never accomplishing anything. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say that with these attitudes. And here's the thing, I don't feel sorry for these coaches who take these jobs because they should, if they don't already, should understand the passion of that fan base, the tradition of that fan base. And when you come in there, don't try to lower the expectations for job security. How about trying to live up to those expectations? We hear the conversation, will Nebraska ever be Nebraska again?
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, look what Kansas is doing of all. Kansas, not in basketball, in football.
Yeah.
If you can win in Kansas, you can win in Lincoln, Nebraska. You can win at Arizona State. You can even win at Georgia Tech, but you got to get out of your own way. I was trying to help Georgia Tech with some publicity earlier this summer, and Georgia Tech's attitude is like they're already Georgia. And it's like, get over yourself. And it doesn't just stop with start with the president. It goes all the way down with these attitudes. I always, at SEC Media Days, when I would try to get representatives from all the schools on my programs, and every SEC Media Days, I'd have 40 plus guests. But Mississippi State, for example, back in the day, and this goes back 20 years, Mississippi State felt like they were already Alabama, Georgia, or these other programs, not needing the extra publicity. And these are the programs that will never win championships.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I heard one of the smartest people I've ever known told me, he said, you're making yourself less, of a dominant alpha male or less, trying to shrink basically to make other people around you feel less uncomfortable or less insecure is embarrassing. And it's a disservice, not just to yourself, but it's to them, because people need to see that greatness. And if you're coming to play football at Florida State or Alabama or Auburn or Georgia, about that 130 plus years of tradition. That is one of the reasons people say, well, these kids don't know about it. Well, yeah, they do. And the reason so many people care is because they know what they've accomplished in the past. And I'm with you. You go to media days, and any program that thinks they don't need the publicity is crazy. You look at Georgia's Kirby Smart, look at Nick Saban, Mike Norvell. When you're around that guy, his personality, he is wired. I mean, he is jacked up, and he's going to make you want to play better. Those are the kind of people that are the fits at coaches. And I'm with you about Nebraska. Fourth winningest program in the history of college football, Johnny. How big a deal is it? Georgia Tech. We know you. I'm an Auburn alum. I got to say, I love the Georgia Tech rivalry. And it makes me angry when Georgia Tech sits on their rear end. And basically the other day I was like, they need to get rid of all of them. And they did. It's not, like I had any influence over that, but there's no excuse. And then what you just said, well, we are Georgia Tech. We have great tradition and all that.
Try to call Georgia. Here's a good example.
Yeah.
Try to call Georgia Tech and reach somebody. Try to reach a live person right now at Georgia Tech. I'm not exaggerating. During the summer, you couldn't reach anybody. You're talking about automation, and nobody would return calls, but you couldn't talk to a live person. What is that saying? What message? If I'm a student athlete in California and I really want to majoring in engineering and I really have my heart set on Georgia Tech, being in Atlanta, I'm reaching out. How many times are you going to make efforts to reach a school like that before you finally say, forget about it? And then you make a quick phone call to another university on your top 3, top 4 list, and they're there ready to take your phone call. I mean, that's how we're talking about technology for a school that believes in technology. It's a school that allows technology to get in their way.
Yeah. I mean, I put my cell phone on all of my business cards. You've got to make yourself
I do too.
accessible.
I do too.
Yeah. And I know. And that's why you're able to get the interviews that you get. And I look at Georgia Tech and I'm thinking, you've got the Atlanta airport right there. I don't care where a kid is. He's never going to be more than a 5-hour flight away from home. So if he gets home, he can fly home.
I know you have a base there. I know you have a base there in Atlanta as well. So for all the Georgia Tech alum, Sidewalk Georgia Tech fans listening right now, call and complain to the president of the university at Georgia Tech, because there's no excuse for this. If you want to know why your program is where it is and in the toilet and how it declined after Paul Johnson, we're talking about a team that won an ACC championship in 2009, appeared in 5 ACC championship games, played and won an Orange Bowl in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
If you want to know why your program is in decline, how about the fact, get the technology out of your way? So make the phone calls to the presidency there at Georgia Tech.
No, absolutely agree with you. And there's 6.5 million people right there. And there's, again, no excuse.
I joke about it. By the way, with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and with my friends there that, cover Georgia and cover all these sports there in the state of Georgia, I joke with them about it. I mean, I called this months ago. This is just ridiculous with that type of philosophy. And especially for me being a media relations guy, I was the guy that pestered you to the point where you were going to do a story on my school, my program, my athletes, even when we were 2-25, just because I forced myself upon you. Now it's like you do everything, and these individuals, as far as the media relations, it's almost like these programs who need the publicity, they do everything in their power to make sure there's no stories written about their programs.
Yeah. And, and again, the history, the traditions, the heroes, the Heisman Trophy interviews that you go out and you record, you've got them all archived. Over 13.
I'll give you another example in the real world. Yeah. I love having authors on my show. I write myself. I encourage authors coming on my show. I like to sell books. I want to encourage reading, whatever format you use, whether you want to hold the book or get it online, whatever the case may be. I turned down an author this week of somebody, and he's written one of the best sports books ever. Top 5. You go to any list, he's on the top 5 list. He didn't want to talk about that book because he's been talking about it for 35 years. He wants to talk about his new book. Everybody knows the book title. I'm not going to tell you who I'm talking about. Everybody knows the book title. They don't know this author's name. His name is not a brand. The book is. He's not. And it's like, you can't sell the new book if you don't point out the fact of what you accomplished before. And he's been talking about it for 35 years and didn't want to talk about it. If I asked him a question, he would answer, but he didn't really want to talk about the reason why people would want to have him on the show in the first place. And I finally said, I'm good. I turned him down. I don't want the person on my show.
Yeah. It is unbelievable. And that's, we care about what happened before. We love to go back, in the Marine Corps, in basic training. Everybody I know, my brother-in-law is in the Marine Corps, 27 years. Every night in boot camp, they'd go to bed. They hit the rack. Good night, Chesty, wherever you are. Well, who is Chesty? Chester R. Puller, United States Marine, was the only enlisted Marine who came in ground zero and made it all the way to commandant of the Marine Corps. So they say, good night, Chesty, wherever you are. Quite a Marine, but your history.
That would be like Mike Norvell saying, I don't want to go out on a football field and see remnants of Bobby Bowden anywhere. I don't want to see Bobby Bowden in the stadium. Or Nick Saban saying, I don't want to hear about Bear Bryant. I don't want to hear about the 12 national championships won before I got there.
Yes.
I mean,
no, I agree.
That's what I'm talking about. And unfortunately, what happens, you have these individuals in the media relations department, all these schools, so terrified of these individuals they're trying to help get coverage for. They're all yes people for the most part.
Yeah. Media relations. I don't like that term, media relations. I like the old sports information directors because they were the ones, like you say, Elmore Scoop Hudgens. That's where you got your nickname.
My mentor.
From. Exactly. You think about him and you think about Buddy Davidson, Claude Felton, David Housel. You think about Larry White, Steve Townsend, Haywood Harris, Bud Ford, Langston Rogers at Ole Miss. What a jewel. I mean, think about all these SIDs. Bob Hartley at Mississippi State. Buddy Martin says they used to fly to Jackson or to the Golden Triangle Airport. He would meet you at the airport, pick you up, the Florida media, and drive you to the game in Starkville or Jackson, wherever they were playing. That's what an SID does. How many people can name the media relations directors anymore? All they are just basically gatekeepers. It's almost impossible to try to get interviews with coaches and stuff anymore. And they wonder why the fans are so angry. Don't forget who pays your bills, who keeps you there. And Johnny, I'm glad you said that.
Who you can name? The ones at Alabama and Georgia. So even though they're on the top of the world, especially in the football world, they're still out there. They're still pushing their programs.
Yeah.
And they get it. They understand. And that's, that's the part where it's that hard work that you have to put in to get to the top. But then that same hard work is also there to keep you there at the top as well.
Yeah, I remember going to a meeting one time, and the chairman of this board of the meeting I was at said, when I was asked to come on and volunteer to be chairman of this board, I rode around this giant 4,500 acre park with the superintendent. And I said, take me around, give me a tour, please. And everywhere we went, he said, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. And finally I stopped him. I said, hold on a second. What the hell can you do? And that's the problem we've got now with so many of these media relations directors. They're so full of themselves, and they do all they want to do is say no. Well,
I want to say something too. Just because they do a great job doesn't mean it's also going to relate to wins, because from a consistency standpoint, the folks with Auburn, for example, best of the best of what they do.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. There's not more consistency as far as W's on the football field, because if there is a program that certainly deserves it based on just the work of the media relations department, it would be the Auburn program, because they do an incredible job.
Yeah. Kirk Sampson, solid gold. I mean, and you got, he can tap into David Housel, and we lost Buddy Davidson a couple of months ago, but I mean, he's the first person that I ever met when I was in high school. He let me come over there and work in the media office the next day. Johnny, your mentor, Scoop Hudgens, think about that. I mean, think about the influence that you have on other young sports writers.
You know how many people I was 23 years of age. You know how many 23-year-olds would look at somebody like Scoop Hudgens and go, what does he know? I mean, he was literally the first director of publicity, now media relations, whatever title you want to throw out there, of the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough for him. Luckily my boss wanted to find something to keep his mind and keep him active in the sports world. And my boss was also smart enough to realize that I, being a fan of sports history, would actually wrap my arms around somebody like that to be on my show. And I was really blessed too, because
hold that thought, Johnny. We're going to take a quick break. I want you to finish that.
Sure.
This is a great story. More sidelines after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
I'm back here with you a few more minutes with Johnny Ballpark Franks. Folks, follow him, check him out, listen to his interviews, 13,000 plus, more Heisman Trophy interviews than anybody in these here United States of America. I am Floyd R. Turbo American. Remember him on the Johnny Carson show? That was one of the greatest characters Johnny ever had. But Johnny, I love what you're saying about the SIDs, media relations directors. Georgia and Alabama on top of the world, yet they're still going over and beyond the call of duty to make their product known and to brand. That's what you got. You know what? You never stop growing, do you?
Well, I mean, you have to do it now because think about what has happened in the last 13 plus months. Not only do we have a transfer portal where if you're not happy, you get beat out in the spring, you could be starting for another team by September. The same thing applies now with name, image, and likeness. You know, if you got the money, you can turn a program, turn it over overnight. I mean, That's the thing that you weigh these decisions. But here's the thing. Everybody wants to talk about the signing period, and they call it early signing period, but then you got the regular signing period. Well, the regular signing period is the late period. You better have somebody in place. If you're making a change in your football program, you better have them in place ready to go because December 21st is the signing period. 70% of or plus of your signees for your recruiting class is happening December 21st now on this calendar year.
Well, again, if you're waiting for February, you're waiting for the scraps to fall from Saban or Kirby's table. That's a fatal strategy to follow.
Think about it. If you want to be better than the Alabamas and Georgias, not only do you have to do what they're doing from a recruiting standpoint, you have to do it better. And then you have to do it better for 2, 3, 4 years to catch up because they already are rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Well, and again, if you're Auburn, you got to live in Georgia and Florida and Alabama. You can recruit out of those 3 states every player that you need. Then you can go.
Can I just say this? And I hate, and I watch all the of Auburn games, every play. Mainly because my family, because of where I do a weekly show. My wife is married to it. I mean, she's an Auburn fan. Watching Auburn football is painful to watch. I mean, I'd rather read a book while Auburn is playing plays. If I'm feeling that way, think about how student athletes are feeling about it, especially when I turn over and see the excitement of Kentucky or Tennessee, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, so you better make your product worthwhile watching. I mean, because right now it's not.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you. You've got 4 or 5 brothers and sisters that all went to Auburn in your family. I mean, you're from Huntsville. I always say it, the smartest city in Alabama. But another thing is,
well, they're more cousins than anything else, and there's a lot of sidewalk fans that, for whatever reason, like the Auburn colors over the crimson and white.
Yeah.
But I know it's important to keep up with them, and I pull for Auburn. I want Auburn to go 11-0 every year before they take on Alabama.
Yeah.
But this is painful to watch. Saturday, knowing the other games that were going on that were more exciting, like Michigan, Maryland, Wake Forest, Clemson, and then having to click over and watch what Auburn was doing. Because I usually have 3 games being taped going on at the same time. Yeah. So when we go to commercial, I click over and watch whatever else is to catch up. And everything else, I so wanted to focus on those other games because of how boring it was watching Auburn and Missouri.
Yeah, and that was a pillow fight. it was painful. You know, you can get 11:29 at the county lockup, or you can go watch a game like that. And both sets of fans left the game dejected. But I agree. Wherever you are, you got to do everything you can to make your program, your coaches, your players accessible. And I think we've had enough as fans, and people in the media are just so tired of no. You know, I'm in sales, man. No means tell me more. And with these people, no means I don't want to have to do any more work than I have to collect my salary. And that's what,
if I'm and I almost, until I decided to get out of athletics, I was going to be an athletics director. I was already an associate AD. When I look at possibilities out there, Auburn would appeal to me because I can it'd be like taking a job with the Cubs or the Red Sox before they had won a World Series. To me, you can make Auburn a very successful winning program. It's a great university, great alumni. It's a beautiful part of Alabama.
Yeah.
And to me, you could take that and make it a winning program in every aspect. Because to me, athletics opens the door for everything else you're doing on campus. And to me, the athletics program, especially football, can be that.
Yeah, and I think we've run out of time, Johnny. But I got to tell you, you're dead right. Let's do this again next week. And if you're ever available on Saturdays, we need to get you to be on that rapid fire college football roundtable with us, because the man with the greatest collection of just cool shirts, Johnny Ballpark Franks, we got to get you on there. But I'm heading down to Auburn tomorrow, going to Lake Martin, going to be down there for the LSU game. And hey, if it rains, it rains. But I'm with you. You've got to keep. I love what you said. You got to keep pushing.
Is this the last weekend, by the way? LSU's favored by 8. Is this the last weekend? Will we be talking about who are the possibilities for Auburn?
I'm already talking about them. I mean, it's just.
Well, I mean, and maybe it's one of these things, hoping that maybe like Arizona State all of a sudden falls in love with Brian Harsin, saves you the money. I get that, I understand, but
we'll miss him. But go Sun Devils! Tell people how they can follow you, and we'll let you go. Okay.
Best thing to do is just for everything, just follow me on Twitter at BP Frank Show. You can also follow me on Facebook at Johnny Ballpark Franks.
Well, we need more Johnny Ballpark Franks out there. Have a great week. We'll talk to you in a few days.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
You bet. That is fun. Johnny Radio is going to join us here in a minute. Sports 56, WHBQ over in Memphis. You know what I love about him? He teaches this business, broadcast, journalism, radio, TV. He gets it. And I tell you what Johnny understands is you approach every broadcast as if you're you're interviewing for a big time job. Okay. And I think the bottom line is when you are broadcasting and you are on radio, if you're on TV, podcast, whatever, come across with positive energy. Okay. That's what people are looking for. You listen to some of these shows, you can hear the guys, fumbling through newspaper articles and notes and stuff like that because they haven't prepared. I mean, it's like the people you saw in class that show up that don't ever study and they want to cheat off of you. Well, we got Johnny Ballpark Franks again, the teacher, the professor, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. He's moving around like a mosquito, man. Just bam, 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 bam. High energy, talks to his producer a lot. And Johnny, welcome to Sidelines. Heard you talking. We listen to you all the time. Sports 56, WHBQ 98.5, the new FM, North Mississippi. Got to ask you something right now. Getting a lot of texts from people. Shoney down in Valdosta. What's going on with Memphis? What's your takeaway what happened with Penny Hardaway and the Tiger basketball program? Then we got a lot more to cover.
Man, Rob, one, it's great to be here on the show. And I will tell you one thing, people in Memphis have been elated. The fact that the IARP came out and basically played patty cake with the Memphis fans, with the Memphis program, with Penny Hardaway. It's been a beautiful, like yesterday was just a celebration everywhere you went, but it's also a vindication for Dr. David Rudd, who fought them tooth and nail. It also shows how weak the NCAA is actually getting with the things with name, image, and likeness. I mean, giving a couple dollars, $12,000 to a player seems silly when we got a Miami quarterback who's got 9, Tennessee quarterback who's got $8 million. Everybody in Memphis is happy. I mean, Penny doesn't have to miss a single game. There's no postseason bans. They're on 3 years probation. It's laughable, and everybody in Memphis is just celebrating.
Well, and then you look at, you got Dr. Bill Hardgrave. I talked with him last week. He's the new president. I think he's got a very, very clear vision of what he wants to do with University of Memphis academics, athletics. You got Simmons First Bank putting, what is it, between, is this correct? I'm going to say this figure. You tell me if I'm right or wrong. Between 150 and 200 million into the Liberty Bowl. I'm just a big advocate of on-campus stadiums, but that's a lot of money.
That is a chunk of change, even in today's time.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. The one thing is a lot of people, especially like you, I hear students on campus talk about how they want the, on stadium, like right on site. I mean, go down to Oxford. My daughter's down there cheering. I'm down there a lot.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful scene down in the Grove. It's a beautiful scene down there. Memphis, though, being more of a commuter school, a lot of people come in from all over around. I don't know if there's enough people on campus to fill a stadium, so you're going to have to go off site anyway. Liberty Bowl is not the most beautiful thing in the whole wide world, but it's useful. And if you pump 150, 200 million in that bad boy, you can make it nice enough.
Yeah. Architecturally, my dad being an architect has always said, and I agree with him, there ain't a bad seat in that house. I mean, I've been to so many games out there, and it, you've seen what it can be like November 1st, 2019 versus SMU game day at Beale Street. That was just absolutely incredible. I mean, so what you can do there. Give me your progress report up to this point on these 3-1 Tigers.
They are a difficult team to get a read on right now. Seth Hennigan, everybody's going to have a bad day. I feel like last week he just had a very bad day. Wasn't accurate with the football. North Texas, a lot of people were talking about, well, Grant Gunnell is the ultimate scout. He's on the North Texas team, and Grant Gunnell was the backup quarterback to Seth Hennigan last year, who got injured. He transferred this year. I don't really think it was necessarily that. I think the Tigers were just off. The running game has not completely got going yet. Defense is having miscues. They had 2 pick sixes, and without those 2 pick sixes and that recovered fumble, I'm afraid that, they don't get that win with North Texas at home. But the good thing is you are 3-1. Still, the only loss was that week 1, game against Mississippi State, where they got bully whipped. But Navy's not very good. Arkansas State was better than I thought. North Texas gave them a run for their money. I'm not worried about Temple, but man, Friday, October 7th, I believe, when they play Houston, I'm real nervous.
Well, I mean, think about programs like UT San Antonio, the Roadrunners. Texas has about 400 D1 players a year coming out of there, and they keep bringing schools online. And again, you talk about Houston, they're going into the Big 12. There's good football played everywhere. And Johnny, I mean, obviously in the interest of full disclosure, like on these financial shows, yes, I own shares of this, or I'm on the board of directors. I'm an Auburn grad, but I'm a Memphian, and I love the University of Memphis, and I want to see, and I have so many friends that went to other schools that want to see that university prosper. I think Dr. Hardgrave's going to take what Dr. Rudd got going and really ramp it up. But you've got to conceive it and then believe it to achieve it. Do you see Memphis in the Big 12 the next 2 or 3 years?
I am so I was 100% when expansion started, when they now expanded the playoffs now to 12. All this expansion is going on, but the weird part about it is they're sucking everybody up except for Memphis. And I keep looking around and trying to wonder where they would fit in. The Big 12 seems like the only fit, but it's like they're not courting them. Do you end up marrying somebody that, you don't talk to maybe when you went to high school with them? Possibly. But right now, let me just say something. As a Memphis fan, a Memphis grad, somebody played ball there, it's not very comfortable because nobody's flirting with us.
Well, have you had Dr. Bill Hardgrave on your show yet?
I haven't. He comes on a lot with Greg Gasson and Eli, who were on before me.
Yeah.
I always listen to him, talk to him a few times. I love his vision. And again, you got to think about it. From the days of Shirley Raines to Dr. Rudd to where we are today, Like it's just night and day. So it just feels like we should. Hey, we got our makeup on, we got our dress, we got our pumps. Somebody hit on us.
Johnny, I met him for lunch back in the middle of June over there on the Highland Strip at Char, and a buddy of mine who's building a lot of stuff on campus. He walked from the president's office across campus to meet us, and it was no less than 117 in the shade that day. And I said, "Did you do that just to meet the students?" He said, "Absolutely." I said, "I'm their president. I mean, he's a populist. I'd get him on your show, let him tell his vision, explain it." He was the dean of the Auburn College of Business. When he was there, he brought in the largest single gift ever by an individual to a college or university in America, $55 million from Raymond Harbert from there in Mountain Brook. And at the Harbert College of Business Management, Bobby Lauder brought him in 2009 from the University of Arkansas, where he'd been for 17 years. He was the dean of the College of Business. He took the College of Business from 2,500 students to now over 6,400. For the first time in history, Auburn has more students in the College of Business than the College of Engineering. I mean, that has never happened before. This guy is the first person in his family ever to graduate from high school. He's from Clarksdale, Arkansas, over there between Conway and Fort Smith. This is a guy, get him on your show, Johnny, with your energy, with your vision, with your brains. As a Memphian, you need to get him on your show. I'm telling you, because I listen to your show, and there's a lot of radio. They're like, but what you are, you're high energy. You can pivot from NFL to college basketball to college football or whatever. That's what Audrey and I love having you on here. We're going to talk about some more stuff. We're going to take a break in about 1:15. And that's the great thing about having a guy that has his own show and is a producer. When you talk about hard breaks, they go, "Yep, got it." But I'm with you. You know what? Who would have thought with the attendance that Houston gets or Cincinnati was getting that they would be in the Big 12? I think the biggest problem, and we're going to talk about this more after the break, is Memphis people don't believe. And if they don't believe it can happen, that it will, it's not that it can, it will happen. Audrey has a great saying about negative thoughts: junk in your mind, junk out. Positive in, positive out. Now, Audrey, Johnny, she's always right, isn't she?
Oh, yes. She's always right. But the thing about Memphis, and I agree with you, Rob, and it is, Memphis is very self-deprecating. And, they back Tiger basketball like you would not believe. Tiger football, when the years are great, they get all the support. But for some reason, on Saturdays, when it's time to fill it up, if they're not playing a big name or an SEC school, I mean, if it's South Florida, if it's somebody like Central Florida when they were good, but right now, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Tulsa, Tulane, these people in Memphis, because I think of how heavy and prevalent the SEC is.
Johnny, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going to take the quick break. I want you to talk about the SEC issue right after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown talking with Johnny Radio, Sports 56 WHBQ. And Memphis does a daily sports radio show 1 11-3. I mean, I'm sorry, 11-1 right after. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm a creature of habit. I know you're on because Eli and Greg are on 7-10, and then Wolo 10-11, and then you 11-1, and then Colin and those guys 1-3, 3-6 stats, and Gabe, another producer, by the way, that you trained. You are the trainer extraordinaire. But I wanted to ask you this because Mark Ham is on the line with us. Mark's a Collierville native, Memphis grad, got his MBA at Tennessee, lives in Knoxville, but has an affinity for Memphis as well. And Johnny, I want to ask you this, and Mark, what we've been talking about is, Memphis, getting them in. Dr. Hardgrave is up there now, came from Auburn. He was at Arkansas for 17 years, last 12 at Auburn, dean of the College of Business, the provost at the time. Then he took the position at Memphis. You got to conceive it, believe it, achieve it. You want to get in a big league. And Johnny, what I'm hearing from Dr. Hardgrave is he is finding there are so many people, and I told him this is what it's like in Memphis, that did not go to school there, that love this city, love this university, and want to see it do well. And I want to get your thoughts on just the Cliff Note version. What can they do right now to make this happen? And Mark, I'd like your perspective as a Memphian who lives in Knoxville, but has a degree from the University of Memphis and understands how this stuff works. Johnny, you first. Yeah, and I agree with you. Mark Ham, what do you think about what Johnny Radio just said for Memphis?
Sorry, Rob, I'm on, but I couldn't hear anything he had said.
Okay, all right. Well, look, what Johnny had said was the Memphis people, if the University of Memphis were to join the Sun Belt, that's not going to make anything better. He said it's just that what they want is to be in a Power 5 league, and you just got to get the people out there to believe that and do whatever they can to support getting there. How would you go about doing it?
No, I agree with you. I mean, I'm a Memphis grad, I'm a UT grad, and you've got to get it started at the grassroots level. I mean, Memphis has always been kind of a basketball city, even though they love football as well. It's just that the Memphis football team was not good for so long, and then they started having a lot of success, and I think that kind of really started with Fred Smith. My brother works at FedEx, and he told me that Fred Smith, when his son was there playing, was just really started got committed to making football better, and I think that's the reason why you've seen that. But I think that's continued to be that. I think you've got to push people that have a lot of money and a lot of assets that really want to be donors. I mean, that's kind of what you see here at Tennessee is, a lot of people get behind it and, they donate money. And I think if you could, have other big donors, that are out there, then I think, that's going to help. The Liberty Bowl is a Liberty Bowl. I think a lot of people, it would help them if they had an on-campus stadium. And I know people talk about that, but it does really kind of change everything by doing that. And, I would hope that maybe Fred Smith would donate enough money to make it, Fred Smith Stadium. And I think it just changes the whole dynamic, when you have, I think, people on campus, that are there, that are want to be there, and it changes the complexity of the game. Nothing against the Liberty Bowl, but I think, an on-campus stadium would do a whole lot to really get a lot more people motivated, a lot more people involved. And then you got to recruit. I mean, and it's tough. It's tough to recruit against, some of the big boys. But, if the NIL is the NIL, then, they should be able to start paying some of these players to come.
I agree with you completely. And if Memphis, like any big city, if you've got a lot of commuter students, you got to do things that other like college towns like Auburn or Tuscaloosa or Oxford, Mississippi don't do. Johnny, all that being said, you mentioned, and Mark, we all know Fred Smith, Pitt Hyde, the Bells are a lot of, I think Memphis has, as a city, has 5 or 6 billionaires, Johnny. And how many times can you go to the well and ask them? You've got to have more of a populist movement in terms of fan support. But you're not going to play Ole Miss or Tennessee or Arkansas every week. And you need to have, I think, the greatest show of force, Johnny, of Memphis football support was when they played SMU November 1st of 2019. Would you agree? Yeah. No, I agree with that. Look, hey, Johnny, I'm going to tell you something. We got to get you back on. I got to get to Mark on some stuff, but we're get Dr. Hardgrave on your show. It'll be, okay. We're going to do it. And I'm going to call you after we go off today and get that information, because he's somebody that has a clear vision of what he wants to do. And tell people again, you are 11-1. Yeah. No, absolutely. He's going to be fired up to be on your show. Thanks so much. All right. That is Johnny Radio. Great stuff there. And Mark Ham. Mark, again, you look at any city in America. Knoxville, people think it's this, 500,000, million. There may be on the metro area. There are a lot of people there, but it's a college town. UT's the driving force. They've got a, medical center there, just like they have the medical school and the dental school in Memphis. But man, how many people were there in town this past weekend? 100,000 plus in Neyland, not Neyland, Neyland Stadium, General Robert Neyland, like bend your knee. 100,000 plus inside the stadium, but outside the stadium, that tailgate environment was off the charts, wasn't it?
Yeah, they've made the claim that Knoxville is the 3rd largest city in the state, on any given Saturday when there's 100,000 people here. I don't know if that's still true, because Chattanooga has really kind of grown over time. But I'll tell you, it was by far. I've been tailgating 20 years. We've been in Circle Park, for 10 years, and you guys will be up here for the Alabama game, obviously. But it was by far the most crowded scene I've ever seen. The most excitement. It was electric. I told people, 4 or 5 years ago, I had 9 tickets. I couldn't even give 9 tickets away on the way to the stadium. I mean, I ate tickets for years. Now you can't find tickets. It's becoming one of those situations. But how many people were there? Where you had over 100,000 inside. Then you had Tailgate Village that had a big screen. My tailgate buddy Terry, that told me there was probably going to be maybe another 100,000 people, on campus. There might have been 200,000 people here. I don't know. I know there was 100,000 inside, and it felt like there was 100,000 at the tailgate because you could not walk. And he sold 90 tents, and you couldn't walk. I mean, you just could not walk. And the excitement, it was electric. it was by far probably the most electric and biggest tailgate we've had in 20 years. Because I can tell you, we ran out of booze. And secondly, the game was up there with probably Florida of 16, probably Oklahoma when Baker Mayfield was here, and said it was the loudest stadium he ever played in. It was just, you just can't describe it. It was unbelievable.
Well, I'm just watching that, and Ben Troupe is going to join us here in a second. Coastal ESPN down in Savannah, Georgia. Ben, of course, was an All-America tight end for Steve Spurrier and the Zooker, Ron Zook. Played 5 years in the NFL, played a year with the Titans. Anxious to get him on here, his take on that. But I tell you what, that atmosphere Saturday was just what you dream of if you're a college football fan, if you're a TV producer, CBS Sports, you got to love it. We had Vern Lundquist on the show yesterday with us. That was fantastic segment there. And he talked about the first ever game that he did for CBS was when Jabbar Gaffney and the Gators were up in Knoxville. Just an incredible game.
Yeah,
and he said after the game, he asked Todd Blackledge, he said, "Are they all like that?" And Todd Blackledge looked at Vern Lundquist and said, "A lot of them are." And he goes, "Wow, man." So that's what you love, and put it to bed, bury it, and just say goodbye. When people say, "Well, it doesn't really matter when certain programs are good," I don't buy that. When certain programs are good, it's good for college football. It absolutely is true. When Tennessee is rocking and that orange and white checkerboard stadium and that Pride of the Southland band comes out and forms the giant T, and the Tennessee Vols run out there onto that football field, led by, of course, the noble and revered blue tick hound. What's his name, Mark?
Smokey.
You damn right. When he comes out on that field and Davy Crockett, that musket rifle and that coonskin, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
It's OTC, man. It's off the chain. And it's really cool.
It's funny. It's funny. It's kind of like that little picture I sent the other day. You got a picture of John Daly and Tiger Woods, and John Daly's out there with crazy pants on and he's smoking a cigarette. I think they're over at the British Open. Tiger's all dressed in his nice polo, and on the back of Tiger they wrote, well, no, on John Daly they put Tennessee, Rocky Top, song, and then they on the back of Tiger it's everybody else's fight song, So it's just funny that we still have a lot of old tradition, but I don't know if you saw the guy yesterday. I know it's probably a little bit of a joke. It was a gentleman that said he was a Florida fan, and he said, "I bet they sing Rocky Top 46 times, and I was singing it before it was over."
Well, I'll tell you one guy we got to ask if he was singing it. I don't know. I know he's doing that Gator chomp. Our friend Ben Troupe down in Savannah.
I don't think he was doing it. I don't think he was doing I don't think he was singing Rocky Top.
but it was a while. I'm gonna tell you one thing. That group of Gators, Ben, there's no quit in them. And you as a Gator, I don't say former Gator like a former Marine either. You're a Marine. You're a Gator for life. You had to be inspired by the no quit, just never surrender attitude of Billy Napier's Gators. But talk about that atmosphere. You've been to Neyland Stadium before. It's pretty special, as is the Swamp.
It is. I said it before. Outside of maybe LSU at night, Tennessee is rough, man. And the thing about Tennessee is Tennessee has faithful fans. Meaning, man, they showing up regardless. But when Tennessee is good, you're not going to hear anything. I mean, I know Hendon Hooker and those guys didn't do it, but you can easily. Sometimes the fans got to remember when our offense is on the field, we got to be quiet. But I mean, Tennessee is a team that understands that. Look, I know that Texas A&M got the 12th man. When Tennessee is rocking, it's rough, man. They're a hard team to beat. And you look at the way they playing right now, like Heupel and Hendon Hooker, they're a match made in heaven. I love the fact that our offensive lineman forgot, hey man, in order to have a Hail Mary, you got to be able to throw it. Like you got to be able to get it off. I know they forgot that, but shout out to Tennessee though. I think sometimes you get so used to ragging on the team and you forget they've gotten better, man, over the years, and they got the head coach, they got the quarterback, They seemingly got an offense, and they was down some key contributors on offense, and they still won the game. So shout out to Hendon Hooker in Tennessee. I know how rough it is. I was there in 2000 for the catch, no catch. So I know Tennessee fans can't stand me. Even when I played for the Titans, I used to get cheers and boos because they say he had the wrong orange on. But shout out to Tennessee making it happen on Saturday.
Ben, it's so funny. Right before you came out yesterday, we had legendary CBS broadcaster Vern Lundquist on, and he talked about his first ever SEC game, and he said he kind of fought going to the SEC. He said, life was good. He'd been the play-by-play man for the Cowboys, sports anchor, the top sports newscast out in Dallas. Life was good. And he goes, going to the SEC, I don't know. His first game, he goes to Knoxville in 2000, and he and Todd Blackledge are doing that game. And your teammate, Jabbar Gaffney. And he said after the game, he looked over at Todd Blackledge and took his headsets off and said, man, are they all like this? He goes, a lot of them are. He goes, wow. I mean, I tell you what, Ben, I forgot you were on that team. This is cool. Welcome to This Is Your Life. Mark, come on in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, what I would say is, Ben, congrats to you guys and all the wins you've had here, because Florida, just has killed us for years. They come in here, you guys win. You've had a historic program, and total respect for you guys and what you do. And I got good friends that are Gator fans as well. But it's always going to be a good game, except when we go to the Swamp and we get beat by 30. But other than that, hopefully it'll be a close game. I think it's good for everybody. But you guys got a great team, great quarterback. But it was a great game. It was a great game. I didn't expect us to win, honestly, but we got to win, so I'll take it. So.
Wow. And Ben, we're about to have to go to a break, but how confident were you going into that game? About 20 seconds.
I wasn't confident. I'm not going to sit here and do what I normally do, because I'm looking at the games that happened before, and I know that momentum is what wins games. You can throw away schemes, you can throw away talent, and Tennessee had the momentum. And the fact that we played catch up the whole game, the final score looked good, but if you spend the whole game trying to catch up, that's not going to be a recipe for success.
Yeah. All right. So we got about a minute before the break. I didn't see the clock right, but both of y'all talking about this game, Mark, you did not expect to win. There was an uneasy confidence, is what you're saying, going into it, correct?
Yeah, there were just a lot of people here that were so confident. Come on. We've got a new coach, and we're only in year 2, and we had a good year last year. But let's go back 2 or 3 years. We were at losing records. So, me and my buddy were talking about it, and I said, there's just a lot of people up here that I think are too confident right now, thinking that, we're just going to go into this and win this game. I was like, you guys got to realize it's the Gators, man. I said, the Gators always find a way to win. And their quarterback is great. And they got a new coach. I said, they got as much talent. They probably got more talent than we do. And I said, and they came up and they were out. They were beating us in the very beginning. And we were just like, here we go again. Yeah. But you can't be confident in the SEC like that. Well, you can be confident, but you can't be cocky.
Exactly. Mark, hold those thoughts. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with more, because I love getting into this, because Ben, it's not often you get to talk with a Gator All-American, and we're going to do it after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Brown back with Ben Troupe, Gator All-American, NFL player, does a daily sports radio show, ESPN Coastal down in Savannah, Georgia. Mark Ham, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report up in Knoxville. I thought we'd have everybody together here. We had a lot of fun. Been with Buddy Martin, and it was on briefly Saturday because he had most of his crew up in Knoxville, and Mark was on with us going around with a GoPro on his head, him and Terry checking out all the tailgates up there. But as Mick Hubert would often say, oh my, Ben, when you look at this Florida team, it starts at quarterback. Everybody always looks at that. And Mark, I don't know, you got to check out the Buddy Martin Show Monday through Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook. Buddy Martin Show. It's fantastic. I watched Ben talking with Anthony Richardson, Florida quarterback. And just when you talk to the players, Ben, you've been there, done that. You have a calmness about you, but you have a lot of memories of these games and all. I saw something out of Anthony Richardson. This guy's scary good, and everybody needs to say, okay, this is his first road game in a true road game in an SEC environment, and his first game is at Neyland Stadium, 100,000 plus. I thought he performed really well, and in time, I can't put a ceiling on this young man. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think what helped Anthony Richardson the most on Saturday is the other quarterback, Hendon Hooker. There's a guy that you can look across and say, look, man, if you want to know what it's like to take control of an offense, to be the heart and soul of a team, he's right there. He plays with confidence. He's coming from the ACC, coming over to the SEC and saying, look, I picked this school before he got hired. I still want to be a Tennessee Vol. And when you can fit multiple systems, so Anthony Richardson is saying, look, man, I got to match him. What I like the most about Anthony Richardson was this. Don't worry about throwing your first touchdown pass. Just play. Let's just go out there and do what you do. And it's almost like we get caught up in the quarterback matchups as we should. But if you're Anthony Richardson, you have to grow up every Saturday. Every single Saturday, you got to grow up. He grew up a lot. I don't know what make people think Tennessee is easy to just go in there and win. No, it's only one Alabama out there, people. It's only one Georgia out there. It ain't like these teams just got all this success against Tennessee. If you was beating up on Tennessee when they was down, they got your name circled on a list, and they coming for y'all. And I just think that Tennessee, certain teams have to beat certain teams. Like Tennessee beating Florida, okay, hey man, that's that mental thing. You know, it's certain teams, and when you can beat them, you can go out there and play with anybody. Hendon Hooker in that offense is going to be rough, but Anthony Richardson, I mean, I know people talk about performances. I guess you have to win the game to be a good performance. 400 and some yards. Yeah, it's a lot of yards passing. I mean, it got 2 touchdown passes, but I was happy for him. I mean, the pick at the end obviously was trying to make a play, but you can grow up in Tyson. If my first start in football is Tyson Neyland, people, that don't happen to most people. So he grew up a lot. Hopefully he can carry that momentum because, like I said, we don't do no moral victories, but you went head-to-head against a guy that's going to be a big-time player on the next level with Hendon Hooker. I like what Anthony Richardson showed. He's still 20 years old. He's still, four games into a brand-new offense, brand-new coach.
Well, I'll say this. Mark and Ben, I had a conversation when I started Sidelines back when I was in college, and it was with Auburn Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Pat Sullivan, who at the time was coaching quarterbacks, offensive coordinator at Auburn. And I asked him about playing freshman quarterbacks. Everybody always wants the second team quarterback. He said, let me tell you something. When I came to Auburn, freshmen were not eligible. And we went on the road and had that big win against Alabama's freshman team at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And I was so excited coming out in my first game at home. I overthrew Terry Beasley, that legendary pass catch combo, by about 20 yards, and the crowd gave me a standing ovation. Right. And he talked about if you take a freshman quarterback, and freshmen now are eligible, this was in 1987. He said, and you put him out as a freshman on the road in the swamp at Sanford Stadium or Neyland Stadium, and he has a bad experience, I mean, he may never recover from it. Well, Anthony Richardson, he had some home starts, but he went on the road at Neyland Stadium and had over 400 yards offense. It's exactly what Pat Sullivan was talking about, wasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Ben's absolutely right. I mean, look, I'll do a SEC fantasy football league with my buddies, and Anthony Richardson, my starting quarterback. I mean, you know, this guy is talented, and I can tell you right now, if there's It was loud. It was louder there than I've heard it in 25 years. I mean, my ears were ringing the next day. And there's two words I can describe for Anthony Richardson. I mean, he's talented as all get out, but poise and confidence. He was not rattled. He was not rattled by that crowd. If you noticed, not rattled at all. I mean, he made plays. He threw the ball. I was very, very impressed with him, and he did not fold, and he didn't look like a freshman at all. He looked like a senior out there with the number of yards he had.
Yeah. Ben, what would the Gators, Billy Napier, what do you think he's telling his team after what he saw this past Saturday in Knoxville? Because there are a lot more tough games. You can't let last week beat you 2 weeks in a row.
He's telling them that you have to show up every Saturday, and character is revealed through football. You ain't building nothing. Football builds character. No, it doesn't. It reveals it. And I think the thing about Billy Napier, he's real similar to a guy like Anthony Richardson. The Florida faithful still kind of look. This guy came from Louisiana, right? Not LSU. But the whole thing about it is, have you seen the Sun Belt play football?
Yeah.
Most people do not want to play them. App, Louisiana, Coastal Carolina, Troy, play them if you want to. And I just think that when you look at what's going on right now, the reason why Scott Frost no longer has a job because he lost to Georgia Southern at home. That's the Sun Belt. So I think what people need to know about a guy like Billy Napier, look, he ain't doing no TikToks like Shane Beamer. He's a football coach, and I like a coach that don't make excuses. That was a better team today. We're going to go out there and keep making plays. I know everybody wanted to make about Trey Dean and what he didn't do at safety. I like coaches that listen, I need you to coach me hard in private, praise me in public because you need me to go out there and win. But Billy Napier knew this is a rebuilding year. I know you got Anthony Richardson, Javon Dexter, and Brenton Cox, but you also got a 20-year-old quarterback who's got to grow up every single – and when you got that type of talent, I think a guy like Richardson and Hendon Hooker, those type of guys, they got gifts. Because they got things you can't coach. I mean, Hendon Hooker had over 100-some yards, over 12 carries. People can't do that. People don't do that. So I think what Billy Napier is telling the team is just because you got Gators on your chest, that don't mean anything, man. Y'all got to go play. And if they can play up to their potential, so be it. But I guarantee you he don't read the papers. I guarantee you he ain't got no – he got a Twitter account. He ain't the one doing it. I guarantee you he ain't the one doing it. He wants to go out there. He knows to go from $2 million to almost $8 million and no one really knows you. You know how it is, Rob. It's one of those things. It comes with it. If I want the glory, I got to deal with the story that comes behind it. And I like Billy Napier, man. When he first got there, they wanted him to do a little dance. He's standing there with that football like, if y'all don't take these pictures so I can get out, I don't do that, man. That ain't. But I'm not saying he won't eventually start dancing because Dan Mullen wasn't dancing either. And then I don't know what the hell he was doing when he was in the locker room. But I think at the end of the day, I want a football coach that tells me the truth. I think too much. I think so now it's all about catering to him. Tell me the truth. Look what Nick Saban, hard nose winning. Kirby Smart, hard nose winning. So that stuff, that old school stuff don't work. All right, well, who's winning national championship? These old school, style mentality. And I think he has that, but he also has that player coach in him. But he ain't gonna make no excuses. And plus, I got to talk Gator Nation off a ledge, even if we win games. You already know what happened on Sunday. I'm on there with the Orange and Blue Blood podcast with Buddy Martin saying it's going to be all right. Because guess what? No matter how you feel, you can't coach them. You can't play. All you can do is root and talk trash. So get your Twitter fingers ready. And they was definitely on full display on Sunday.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, Ben's right. Old school, tough. Kids crave that. Raise the bar. Give them the structure of tough practices, and then you go in there and recruit. And Florida, look, California has a lot of talented kids, but compared to the kids that come out of Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, they're soft. They're again, big numbers, but look at the Pac-12, look at the SEC. And I'm with Ben. The Sun Belt, I mean, Arkansas State, Coastal Carolina, App State, there are 14 schools in there, and the way they're playing, I don't think it's very long before you're going to start having national commentators talk about the Power Five as the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC, and the Sun Belt. Because the Pac-12 right now, it's a mess, and I'm with Ben, and you there are no Eastern Washington, Florida should handle them with ease. But I like what he said, his description of Billy Napier. And again, you can't coach what Hendon Hooker can do. That's on God.
Yeah, I agree. And, and the thing about these players now is that with the NIL and the people coming out, and it's, they do their announcements, and there's all this bling and all this, it's a show, but when you got Sunbelt players and you got guys that are, 2 stars, 3 stars that play football, and then they go and, they're out there beating, some of these big programs. But look, I mean, I agree. I mean, you look at Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, and, they're very, very hard-nosed coaches. And I think, I think some of these players, I mean, Ben could speak to it better than I can because I didn't play college football, but these guys, I think they like the structure, and I think they like to win, but they want to be coached up as well. I mean, they want to get to the NFL, right? So,
Ben, along those lines, when you played, you came in from Swainsboro, Georgia, small town, but you played in Georgia high school football it's incredible. And we know that. And the small towns, high school football games, they're it. And you're there in Savannah. You've got a great, front porch view of college football and high school football in the South. Give your take on why people now think you should be able to immediately fix a mess, because obviously the coach before you is out of a job because his program was a mess. I mean, people don't ever think about that, really.
Right.
Because people think new is better, and new is just new. It's not better. It's just you have something new. I mean, the shoes you wear the most aren't your newest shoes. I mean, Yeah, the ones I wear all the time, is the ones that my lady be like, please don't wear those. Please, this is my feet. This is what I want to wear. And I think the thing is too, we got this microwave type mentality. This instant gratification. It's not, because think about it. Dan Mullen came into Florida, went to back-to-back New Year's Six Bowls, and he's gone. So he's doing it. The thing about the hardest thing to do in football is the hardest thing to do in life. Sustainability. It's hard. It's hard to do, especially when they're seeing these recruiting rankings, these 5 stars. I hope Peyton Manning's son want to do anything but play football, because good God, if he does, and he wants to be a 5-star recruit, I think the thing is, Nick Saban is rare. That's rare stuff. The best teams have coaches that's been there for over 5 years. The best teams, they coach, think about that. That's like a lifetime now. Vanderbilt gets rid of their coach every 4 years. Vanderbilt. They give a coach 4 years. Because that's Coach Franklin up there at Penn State. So I think that when you think about college football, it's such a huge business, and they're looking at these facilities and $10, $12 million a year coaches. What is the product on the field? If the product I give you Mario Cristobal. Right? It was all Farmer Kane and all this, and now they lost back-to-back games. They're thinking they got embarrassed by MTSU. They got embarrassed. Yeah. So I think, Rob, what happens is you want somebody who just is. He's just a steady flow coach. That up and down stuff, which to me, the hardest thing to do in college football is not make a bowl. It's 6 wins. You know how hard that is every year? And I think that when you got names like Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, LSU, people think Brian Kelly, because he make a bunch of money, he gonna win games. It don't happen like that, man. You got to get the hardest thing to build and sustain is the culture. You don't believe me? Look at pro sports. Best teams got the best culture. Look at college. Best teams got the best culture. You get your culture right, you can play and plug anybody. Because Hypo thought that Hendon Hooker wasn't a guy since week 3 of last year. So I think the proof is in the culture. You get the culture right, you got a shot to be really, really good. Because I know Scott Frost is on the street, but Nebraska's had 1 winning season in like 10 years. I don't think Scott Frost is the problem.
Yeah. Mark?
No, I agree. I mean, look, we went through the desert up here for, 12 years. Like I was talking about earlier, I had 9 football tickets. I couldn't give them away, going to the game. Nowadays, you got everybody wanting one. But I agree, everybody wants it done now. And when you have tradition and you've tasted it, even though our taste was 20 years ago, the fan base still want that win, and they want to win right now. And in the SEC, and you got a stadium, you got the facilities we have up here, people want it now. And you're right, it's instant. And if you're not winning, then they're ready to get rid of you, and kick you to the curb and get somebody else in. But, when you look at somebody like Nick Saban and Kirby took the playbook from Nick Saban, Nick Saban just recruits and recruits and recruits, and his coaches are good. And even though he has different coaches, he brings in the right players, and I think he brings in a mentality of guys that are willing to wait to start because they probably know they're going to get to the NFL. But I can tell you up here, it was that way for a long time as well. We got rid of Philip Fulmer, right? I mean, everyone we fired him years and years ago, and after that, look at what we did for 12 years, nothing.
Yeah.
We were in the desert. So,
yeah.
Long story short, I agree. I think Coach Heupel's a little different. He's doing some stuff with some players that, quote, aren't 4 and 5 stars. But I think he's a rare breed. But, proof's in the pudding. You never know in this league what's going to happen.
Yeah, look, we got about a minute and a half left. This is great conversation, and glad getting the two of y'all together, right? Especially after this Tennessee-Florida game. Ben, you just do such a great job of taking all this complex information and, I guess, thought process of what it takes to be successful. But you nailed it. It's about a culture. You got to be tough. Ben, tell people 2 things. Tell them about your book in about 45 seconds, your book and how they can follow you. And we got to get you back on again next week. Always love having you on. You are first class.
My book is, Uncommon Unfinished, the Ben Troupe story. You can always go to bentroop84.com to pick up a copy. Everybody got the story, and this is mine. My book is about the people, places, and things that help me become who I become, and it's a gigantic thank you letter. I think so often at times I'm used to getting celebrated. Wherever my parents go, where it's been. Where my siblings go, where it's been. This is my way of saying, hey, I appreciate those people. I went from a have-not to a have-got. And my village had a lot more to do with people that not share the same color as me and the same last name as me. So it's just saying thank you. I appreciate these people beyond belief. My book is our book. It's a celebration of my family. Go to bentroop84.com, pick up a copy, man, and hopefully my book will inspire you to write your own. You want to read mine? I'll make sure and buy a copy of yours when it comes out as well.
Hey, but I'm going to tell you what, Mark, when I read that book, it is thanking the people along the way. And look, I want to thank all of our great sponsors like Red River Ford, Toyota, Gateway Tire and Service Center. We go the distance for our customers and our communities. And remember, go out and help somebody with the expectation to get nothing in return. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And remember, keep the people down in Florida and in the Atlantic coast, the Gulf Coast in your prayers. Big storm coming their way. Get ready. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, we're out of here. Thanks for listening.